let's talk about political messaging. Joining me now is DPR&Co advertising co-founder Richard Ralphsmith. Richard, the major parties have already started ramping up their ad campaigns ahead of the upcoming election, and both parties seem to be focused on extending their reach on social media. Here's what Labor's pushing.
These are all cost of living measures introduced by the federal Labor government because we understand the pressure families are under, and every little bit helps. But look who was opposed to every single one of them. Whichever way you look at it, you'll be worse off under Dutton.
It may be a little bit boring, but I think that's actually a pretty effective ad. It's focused on cost of living, it's simple, easy to understand.
Yeah, it is. It's simple and it's clear. Whether it's going to be effective, I'm not entirely sure. We know cost of living is the biggest issue in the election, but when you look at the big cost of living issues, housing, food and energy, that ad doesn't really touch the first two, and then the third one has been Labor's biggest broken promise, and it puts the emphasis on that. So I do wonder whether people look at it and go, right, you've given me $300 as a handout, but does that really compensate for the massive increase in my energy bills? So I wonder about its effectiveness from that point of view. Well, you know, time will tell. And I also wonder whether or not we're seeing very early, you know, is Labor going to make the same mistake by demonising or over-demonising, it's a very Dutton-focused ad, a Conservative leader from the Liberal side? Because every time they've done that, you know, Howard, Abbott, now Dutton, it has backfired.
Now let's contrast that Labor commercial with what the Liberals have got.
Sometimes we were the only thing between vulnerable people and serious harm. So I learned the importance of always turning up and getting on with the job. Later, I started a small family business. It grew to 40 staff who had families, mortgages and aspirations, which means that you are relied on to balance the books and be responsible.
Peter Dutton in that ad talks about being a police officer, small business owner, talks about his time as a government minister in the full ad. How effective is that?
Well, it is. It's a solid effort at humanising Dutton, you know, showing him as a police officer, showing him as a family man, showing him interacting with people in the electorate, with John Howard in particular as well. It's pretty stock standard playbook stuff to humanise an opposition leader when people aren't really familiar with the person. I think what they really need to do with him is get bolder as the campaign progresses, both in policy but also as in communications.
Well, I fear they're a little bit scared to be bold because they're in striking range. I think they're worried about making a mistake and having some sort of a backlash. Now, what have you observed in terms of how political parties have changed their ad spending? Obviously, the focus isn't just on television and print anymore. You've got a lot of online ads. You've got a lot of ads on social media. How do they manage those competing concerns?
Well, certainly print has dropped off, although when you do a print buy, you're always buying the digital package as well. But if you consider TV in terms of, you know, TV streaming video and catch-up video and then online video, all of that in a package, Steve, that is still the bulk of the media spend for both parties, and it's the quickest and most effective way to get to the mass audience quickly. And we also know that, you know, every TV ad, every new TV ad is picked up by the news media, and that's the way most people interact with it, and that's free. So they know that that's what sets the agenda, and they will still be putting the money behind that. But having said that, social media spend in this election will be the highest we've ever seen. It will be increasing.